the journey of the person that I'm playing, and that it's not about what Regina's thinking, even though I do believe that the performances that we love so much as an audience are the ones where the character and the actual person find a middle ground and birth something true and honest out of that. So yes, there is Regina, and there's we're doing this together. It's me and you, Shirley. We got it.
So let's just jump in. So this is a deep labor of love, this film. And you've played so many iconic characters, people that you've made iconic for us, whether it's Brenda, right, or Angela from Watchmen, Marcy from Jerry Maguire. But you don't tend to play historical characters. I think this is your second one, maybe, from Ray and now Shirley. And one thing about every actor has their own process, but Regina builds these worlds, right? And these backstories, deep backstories for your character. So I was curious, when you're playing a historical figure who we have so much information about, how do you go about building this backstory? Or do you even feel like you have to? What's your process? Is it the same for a fictional character as it is for historical? Or how did you build the backstory for Shirley when you had so much information?
Right. Ooh, good question. I think, to your point, you already have so much information thanks to Wikipedia, Google, and all of that. You don't have to go to an encyclopedia anymore to find things. And the whole point of doing this film was to get into the interior of who Shirley is. And those of us who did know about Shirley Chisholm, so many people who didn't. That was the biggest reason for doing it. Like, so many people would say, "No, I don't know who Shirley Chisholm is," and just and Black people, So my sister and I were like, "Okay, this needs to happen," I feel like part of the reason why it took so long, because while I wanted to portray Shirley, I wasn't ready yet, And
what does that mean for Regina King not to be ready?
I think I needed to live a little more life. I think I needed to understand more of what it means to be the only. It's all people out in the world that were the first of something. That is a lonely path to be on, because there's no one that can relate. If we're lucky enough to have friends or family, we have someone that can either relate or can bring you to someone else that can help you through. But there's no psychologist, there's no psychiatrist. When you are the first at something, you are the only. And I think I needed to live a little more life to even possibly understand what that could mean emotionally, to be able to try to portray it honestly. And so I think for me, in building the backstory or the world of who Shirley means to me, and the people that I talked to who did actually get to know her, I was able to understand, learned that she loved to dance, and she had a sense of humor. So I just started thinking about a person that loves to dance and has a sense of humor, and all of these videos that we see of her, she's so, she's so erect. She's so, she seems like she would not compromise in any way. However, if a person loves to dance and loves to crack jokes, they like people. They like being around with people. I've never met a person that loves to dance or joke around that doesn't like to be around people. And so I started to think about, is she dancing because she's releasing, or is she dancing because she's running away. You know, like we sometimes we put on music just to get away from it all, and sometimes we put on music just because we are releasing. And so I started to just, as we were breaking down the scenes, really consider when it was from a place of running away in isolation or a place of leaning in, if that makes any sense. And so she just became really human for me, and not just like this person that I read about, and this person that the few people that I got a chance to talk to that knew her, their perspective of her. And so what is she just as a woman? Just a woman, just a woman. And so the world I created for her in my mind had a lot of peaks and valleys and a lot of quiet moments. And I feel like there are more people out there like a Shirley than are not. I mean, for example, she has a family, but there would be no Kamala Harris without Shirley Chisholm, And I'm sure Kamala understands a lot of that road. There would be no Hillary Clinton without, there'll be no Barack Obama, So, and I would guess all four of those people would understand. There's a line in the film where I was about to say Shirley's husband, but her husband before he was her husband. When Arthur says that it takes someone to have an ego to do what you're doing, and to be able to have an ego but still be able to sit down and talk one-on-one with someone. Usually we hear that word ego and we're like big head, but it takes a specific type of person
to have that ego and then be so dedicated to like servant,
servant
to leadership.
People.
Yeah. No, it's pretty, and we do see it, I think, in this current campaign from certain candidates more than others.
Yeah.
So this idea of interiority is something that I think you do so well. And one of the things I think we talked about in the interview, because I was like deep in the archive of you, and you have these like mirror scenes. I don't know if you remember this. I was like, there's so many mirror scenes, right? So like Angela and Watchmen, there's a scene, obviously in Beale Street, that's a very profound scene that Barry and I were able to talk about. But in this movie, you have that scene. So there's dancing, but there's also the moment in which there's this attempted attack on her life, right? So, and we see her in the bathroom afterwards, or we see you being her, and that's a Shirley that we don't often see. So the question for me, and it's going to come in two parts here. One, like, how do you approach that scene? Because it's also like a Shirley that you're creating for us. And so when do you realize you are Shirley, or Regina there's this moment when the two merge? And then my next question is about the accent, because I think that's really like a moving target.
Yeah.
And how you approach that, because her accent, your accent. So at first I was like, wait, what? And then I just realized, and then, you can talk about how you approach the accent. But the first is just like that profound, those moments of vulnerability, that profound scene when you're sharing so much of her with us. And how do you get into that? Is that you? That's her? What is it you're feeling in those moments?
Well, you remember when you told me that, I was like, have I done a lot of mirror scenes? I never, until you like pointed them out, I had never thought about it that way. And I think that that's my approach. In my mind, I've never done Shirley's never done a mirror moment before. So it's Shirley's moment, Angela's moment.
American Crime, when you're putting on the hijab.
American
beautiful.
Crime, you just hit them all. And I was like, whoa, I guess I have.
No, but I think it gets to this interiority that you're showing us of Black woman and Black womanhood, like the range. They're all different mirror scenes. They're not the same, but.
Well, I mean, I think maybe well, one, I'm not thinking about them as how can I make this different from another.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking at it that way. I do feel like in those scenes, for when Regina is playing whoever that person is, the thing that I'm always thinking about going into it is that every person in the world, no matter what sex you are, what color you are, what age you are, you have mirror moments. Even if you don't like to look at yourself, you have a mirror moment. And I am looking at Shirley and I am thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? Is this worth it? You know, with in Beale Street, it was, I'm looking, thank you, I'm looking at Sharon. Sharon is looking at herself and thinking, oh my God, I gotta do this for my babies, you know? So it's whatever that moment is for a person, we all can relate to having the mirror moment. You know what I mean? And so I think just staying true to the journey of the person that I'm playing, and that it's not about what Regina's thinking, even though I do believe that the performances that we love so much as an audience are the ones where the character and the actual person find a middle ground and birth something true and honest out of that. So yes, there is Regina, and there's we're doing this together. It's me and you, Shirley. We got it. I am looking at it as this is. I'm looking at Shirley. Shirley is looking at herself in those moments.
Yeah, that's great. And then that. So thank you. That's so beautiful. And then the accent. Like, how did you get? How did you prepare? How did you change the voice? A different. I mean, it seems to me quite a task, right?
It is quite a task.
Yeah.
It is. It is. First of all, her dialect is just simply, you know, and the beautiful thing is I had a wonderful dialect coach, Erin Washington, and the biggest gift she gave me, in addition to just being amazing at what she does, is point out that I have freedom in the dialect. Because none of us say things the exact same all the time. So, you know, you kind of go, when you know you're going to do a dialect, you go into it feeling like, I've got to get everything right. It's got to be, she always sounds like this. And what Erin did is she started pointing out, see how she said the word here in this interview, and in this interview she doesn't say it that way. And I was like,
So
and
that
it just
freed you up?
freed me
Wow.
up to
Okay.
just let the emotion
Okay.
be guide
Okay.
the dialect.
Wow.
It was a lot of, I'm not saying that I wasn't working
Yeah.
at it all the time.
Yeah.
I would have the teeth in my mouth, walking around the house talking. And it took me a while to kind of shed it. You know, afterwards I would
yeah.
still say little phrases the same way my sister would go, you sound okay, Shirley. But having her giving me pointing that out, and me like saying, oh my gosh, as long as I am being honest, then I have it. As long as I'm not trying to copy Shirley, but I'm just, I know that I have Bayesian parents. I know that I spent this amount of time in Barbados. I know all these things. So, and I know how I talk when I'm with my sisters, and I know how I talk when I'm talking to, Senator Dole, and I know how I talk when I'm just speaking to my assistant, and it's at the end of the day, a little more slurs come in. Other times, not as many slurs. We would call it slushy. She would say, "Okay, this I think you should. It's more of the slushy voice for this scene," and I'd get it because it was related to fatigue.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the art of what we do. That's the fun part.
Yeah, and I think it's important because sometimes when we think of these accents, like if it's not a British accent, we may not value it if an American's not doing a British accent, we may not value the transformation as much. And I think with Shirley having all of these from Barbados, from Brooklyn, from trying to navigate all of these worlds, being in Congress, but being at home, all of these accents are coming together.
And the thing that's interesting about Barbados, because it is a British, and they're British is still holding strong right now, and so it's a very different thing with the Bajan Caribbean than say a Jamaican Caribbean. It's that British. You can hear it in the way they speak.
So I just wanted to for all the purposes that one needs to know, these accents are really hard to do. So
they are not easy.
Yeah. No. Another thing with Shirley, in terms of her speech pattern, I think something you said to me once was she's Spitfire, but she never curses. And so it's in the kind of vein of well, what is it that you learned from Shirley, right? In terms of her attitude and self-presentation, having this authority, moving in the world so quickly, but being such a pragmatist. How did that, or at least that's what you convey. And I love this movie because it's I love a good political strategy movie. And I'm oh, this is what, we don't see Black women, with Scandal, right? We may there, but you don't see them as political strategists often at all, even though we clearly know that's the case for many social movements, including the campaign that we're seeing before us. So if you could talk a little about what did Shirley teach you about how to move in the world differently than you may not have done before this movie?
I mean, I just think, me being so much younger, or not so much younger, me being born at a different time. It was, I'm more, I come from the generation that, or so we thought, it's cool to cuss. It was cool to,
we're hip hop.
When you drop a couple F-bombs, and you say it right and not hit the R at the end. It's cool, and when sometimes in this, my generation, when you use it, we mean business. Whereas, and even now, I say my generation, but with my mom, if she was cursing, we were really in trouble. So you kind of come from a time where cursing marks it marks strength, if you will, or firmness, that's so we think. And then you start to study Shirley, and I would watch something and I would have to play it back because did she curse? Because she hit him so tough. Whoa, and that was powerful. And the debate with Kamala and
the debate,
and she.
I think we know.
And I swear she wanted to call him a mother something.
Yeah, and she does curse, actually. She does to curse.
But she said, this person. And that was just awesome. You know what I mean? And the fact that she didn't curse made us even more clear, if you weren't clear before, of exactly how she feels about how he feels about the country. And that's the thing about Shirley. Shirley was well aware that I must always... If you look at her clothes, Shirley should be in some type of fashion, something. because she was bringing it. I mean, like I saw pictures, like the one picture with the boot, when you see her with the boots. Yeah, she really wore that. And I was like, oh no, we got to find that. She has to wear that in this film. That's one of the beauties of being a producer on the film as well, that you can make those type of demands. But
Of
she
yourself.
was very
Yeah.
of yourself.
Yeah.
But she was very well aware that how you present is going to change the effect that I'm going to have when I'm in the room.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I think that not only because of her Bayesian upbringing, that was like not appropriate for an educated person to curse, a woman to curse, because you have to realize, you know, she ran for president at a time that women still needed their husbands to open up a checking account. You know, so you know, so that's what I think. Those people, most of you out here, are up on your history, and because I'm not, I would have not known that if I was not studying Shirley. But that's what made that scene between them so powerful. You know, those people that truly understand the time period that they were in when they were having that argument. You know, it elevates that conversation, you know, or makes it more provocative. But yeah, she was very much aware of the full package and what the full package, the result that the full package would have. And that's one of the things that I really learned from her.
I just have two more questions for you. It's this idea of her being economically independent, and maybe, and perhaps that's why the father leaves her the money, but also in terms of her loneliness and her relationship with her sister, but your relationship with your sister, who I got to know through this process and producing this film together. And so I was curious for you, how, you know, that you're playing against each other in the film, but you're making this film together out of deep and profound love. So what was it like just acting across from your sister, who's a complicated character?
Yes.
Yeah. And part of Shirley's relationships with women is very complicated.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, first of all, Raina killed it. She was amazing in the film. And however, coming into it, it was not always supposed to be Raina playing that role.
Yes.
So they, John had auditioned a lot of actors, and I guess he just wasn't happy with them, and so he
said you guys had a lot of notes.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Fair. And so he had a lot of notes as well. Yeah. He asked Raina on a location scout, what does she think about playing Muriel?
Yeah.
And now Raina and I are producing partners. So, you know, with a producing partner, and especially when you're acting or directing, you want your partner to be the one that's like carrying things, that has your back.
Yeah.
You know, because you got the studio executives and they got the studio's back, but who's gonna have the creators back? The artisans back. And so she said, let me think about it. And she called me and asked me, you know, what did I think about it? And I said, well, what do you think about it? And she said, well, I could do it. I mean, I could do it. And I was like, whew, all right. It's been about 30 years, Raina, since you've acted. And she was like, and I said, well, Raina, I have no doubt that you can do it, but you need to be boots on the ground as a producer. And she was like, I could do them both. And so, you know, we were going over lines with our mom. And Raina was doing so much as a producer. And she can't come over for us to go over lines. And it wasn't looking too great. And So I got up and I kind of went in the other room because I was like, I do not want to make her nervous, but I do need to let her know that we're shooting this scene in like 4 days. And so my mom, when I went out the room, my mom talked to her.
Wow.
And I don't know what my mom said,
Yeah.
but Raina hit that set and was just,
Oh, wow.
you know,
Oh.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. But the thing is,
Yeah.
Muriel,
Yeah.
that Raina played, was the last the last Saint Hill sister to be alive. So we actually were able to talk to her on the phone, and she wanted Shirley's story to be told, even with their relationship.
Yeah.
Wanted Shirley's story to be told. So she kept giving us the rights and kept, what she would, other people would come around to buy the rights from her, like they were waiting for the rights to go, and once our contract would be over, she would call, and we would pay her again and renew, and it wasn't even like when I say pay her
No, I
again, it
understand,
just wasn't.
just
That
renewing
was
the
not her
contract. Yeah,
intention.
yeah.
And then she called and was like, I just want to know, will I still be here when this movie gets done? And we were like, we've got good news. We've got a green light. And we were coming to go see her, and she passed away.
Oh, I didn't know
So,
that. Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a lot of losses around this. But, Shirley, people who did not know who Shirley was, they know who Shirley is now. And we took a big risk by saying, the Netflix and John really wanted the film to come out like during like the awards push, and we were like, this is going to be an election year next year. We need to drop it sooner. And so we dropped it in March. And, everyone is like, well, you can't get any awards. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's what the reason why we set out to do it.
Yeah.
It would be great if we did, but happy to see that this is happening now. I mean, cut to however 6 months later that this screening is happening at a time when what's happening right now, and it kind of makes me feel like, all right, Shirley, we hear you, girl. We hear you,
Well, that was my last question, because when we met in January, I mean, you said that this was for an election year, but we had no idea that this election would look the way it does and be such a descendant of Shirley's campaign and her legacy. So I guess the last thing is like, what is it that you want us to take away from this film at this particular moment when so much is at stake around questions of democracy and freedom?
I think, it's interesting, President Obama's campaign was always hope. But I think, I hope that with people who have watched the film and now know who Shirley is and decide to go and do more research on her and seeing Kamala right now, that her legacy is possibility,
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.